Ballot Measure 110 was supposed to provide more access to drug treatment for Oregonians struggling with addiction. But more than a year after its implementation, some in local law enforcement think the measure is backfiring. Fox 12's Simon Gutierrez explains why some say things are worse now than before.
Before voters passed Ballot Measure 110, opponents predicted decriminalizing drugs would lead to an increase in crime and hamstring law enforcement when it comes to drug activity. Crime has, in fact, increased in the Portland area, and while they say it's hard to point to Ballot Measure 110 as the cause, they say it's also hard to argue that things have gotten better. Titled the Drug Treatment and Recovery Act, Ballot Measure 110 was supposed to pump hundreds of millions of dollars into treatment and behavioral health services. In the year or so since it went into effect, Washington County District Attorney Kevin Barton says he hasn't seen those results.
Ballot Measure 110 was a Trojan horse. People who voted for it were led to believe that they would be increasing access to treatment.
Instead, Barton says his office has seen an overall increase in crime, property crime in particular.
Crimes like car theft, car break-ins, catalytic converter theft, things that really impact the quality of life for regular Oregonians.
Barton says he can't say definitively that Ballot Measure 110 has caused the increase in crime, but does say that it has tied the hands of law enforcement.
Previously, step one was someone was essentially caught using a drug that was illegal, and the police could interact with that person at that point in time, and we could provide treatment and supervision. Step one now has been taken out of the criminal justice process, so there's really no way to require people to engage in that treatment.
Tara Hurst, executive director of the Health Justice Recovery Alliance, sees it differently.
We know from OHA's reporting that in 6 months, 16,000 Oregonians were able to access care.
Hurst says part of the point behind Ballot Measure 110 is that the war on drugs hasn't worked.
We have seen study after study that shows that forced treatment not only doesn't work, but it can also be really harmful. We've also shown that when you saddle somebody with barriers, lifelong barriers, such as criminalization, you don't have access to jobs, housing, education, bank accounts.
As for crime, Hurst says that's been increasing around the country, not just in Oregon.
What Ballot Measure 110 did was decriminalize small possession of drugs. It did not decriminalize crimes.
But Barton says drug users often commit crimes to fuel their habits.
So now we have to wait for them to commit a more serious crime. We have to wait for them to steal a car, wait for them to break into a car, break into a home, assault somebody.
But Hurst says more funding for treatment services is starting to flow from the state. And despite the slow rollout of funds so far, access to treatment will improve.
We are 50th in the nation in access to services. The services haven't been there, period. We still have to build our way up to ground level and then continue up in order for us to really see and feel the impact of a robust system.
Barton, for his part, freely admits the war on drugs in the system that preceded Ballot Measure 110 was flawed. He does think that the new system needs some adjustment, including better data collection and some sort of penalties for people who refuse to engage in drug treatment. I'm Simon Gutierrez, Fox 12 Oregon.